Good evening, everyone. I'm Doug Shackford, Dean of UNC Kenan-Flagler, and I welcome everyone to tonight's event. This is our first Dean Speaker Series of the academic year. It's my special privilege to welcome our Chancellor, Carol Folt. The Dean Speaker Series was created to bring to the campus outstanding scholars and leaders to share thoughts and insights with the school, the university, and the community at large. The series is supported by a gift from the Archie K. Davis Foundation. At the conclusion of this evening's lecture, Stephen Arbogast, professor of the practice of finance and leader of the Kenan-Flagler Energy Curriculum, will deliver a vote of thanks to our speaker on behalf of the faculty, students, and staff. Also, I would like to mention two other speakers we'll be hosting in the coming months. On Monday, November 9th, we will welcome Chris Linland, founder and CEO of betabrand.com, as our second Dean Speaker of the year. Chris is an alum and was one of the most fascinating people I have met since I've been in this job. Started a company, he's out in San Francisco. We'll be excited to welcome him back. Then on the 1st of February, General Michael Hayden, former director of the CIA and National Security Agency, will deliver this year's Weatherspoon Lecture. You can look for more details and registration information for both these events to come your way. Now I'm happy to welcome to UNC Kenan-Flagler Lynn Good. Lynn is the chairman, president, and chief executive officer of Duke Energy, one of America's leading electrical power companies and a great friend of this school. Before becoming CEO in 2013, she served as Duke Energy CFO and earlier led the company's commercial energy businesses during its initial development of renewable energy projects. She began her utility career in 2003 with Cincinnati-based Synergy, which merged with Duke Energy 3 years later. Prior to 2003, she was a partner at two international accounting firms, including a long career with Arthur Andersen. She spoke to our graduation for the MBA program a couple years ago, and we compared notes, and I think we started Arthur Andersen almost the very same week. Don't hold that against her. In 2016, Lynn was a LinkedIn influencer, the only regulated utility CEO in the Thought Leadership Program. In 2014 and 15, Fortune magazine listed Lynn as 13th among the most powerful women in business. And in 2013, she was named as one of the 10 most influential people in the energy sector by SNL Energy. She serves on numerous boards and is a member of the Business Council and the Business Roundtable. She holds Bachelor of Science degrees in System Analyst and Accounting from Miami University and Oxford, Ohio. She and her husband, Brian, live in Charlotte. Please join me in giving a warm Tar Heel welcome to Lynn Good.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here. And we had an opportunity in the reception beforehand to talk a little bit about the partnership between Duke and Chapel Hill, and it's really been an extraordinary one and one I'm particularly proud of. I have to share a little bit, because I'm from the Midwest, that when I first came to the Carolinas about 10 years ago, I was with a group of my financial team, kind of an all-hands meeting. It was in the middle of NCAA season, and I had an opportunity to maybe kick things off, talk a little basketball. So I understand rivalries from the Midwest. It's called Ohio State and University of Michigan, within Cincinnati, University of Cincinnati Xavier. I really didn't completely get the Duke University Chapel Hill thing. So I started with, did anyone see the Duke game last night? And there's like no one. There's no one. No one wants to raise their hand and say Duke. But when I said Chapel Hill, it's like the whole place goes crazy. And I knew I was in Tar Heel land all the way in Charlotte. And today, when I look at the alums, so the Chief Financial Officer of Duke Energy, the Executive Vice President of HR is an alum, the Chief Risk Officer, the Treasurer, David Fountain, who's the President of North Carolina. So we have your university very well represented in the senior ranks of Duke. And that's also an important part of our partnership with the university. So really, my honor to be with all of you this evening. And what I thought I would talk about, because the topic of change and transformation has to be on everyone's mind, And I thought I would talk about it from a couple of perspectives, because our industry is certainly going through a great change and transformation. And as you think about leadership and how you'll prepare for change and transformation, there are a few observations I wanted to share with you on that as well. And I think about the MBA students and undergraduates in business, the career that you're going to face is going to have more change and a more rapid pace than I experienced over the last 30 years. And so this concept of being prepared for a rapidly changing environment is one that I hope will take some observations away that'll be timeless for all of you. So what's up in the energy industry? It's certainly the conversation in almost every area that I travel, and I'm sure a conversation for many as well, because it's such an important service, right? It's essential. The lives that we all conduct, our pleasure, our comfort, our security, the industries that we count on throughout our area are all powered by energy. And that conversation about where that industry is going is one that is, there are lots of voices and lots of points of view. And I think about the change that we're undergoing, it's really consistent with change you see broadly in industry. It's about what customers expect, and they're expecting more and more, empowered by great mobile devices and technologies. The technology itself that's impacting our business is extraordinary as well, whether it's mobile technology, or whether it's smart devices that we can use to run our system better, or data analytics that we can use to figure things out that perhaps didn't exist before, or technologies to generate power differently, whether it's solar or wind or battery. And then public policy. You know, we are one of the most regulated industries in the US, and whether it's at the federal or the state level, trying to take those regulations and policies in a way that moves our company forward for the benefit of our customers and communities is also important. And so as we think about it at Duke Energy, we think first about how are we going to keep delivering value to customers. Because at the end of the day, we are providing an essential service that everyone counts on. And affordability is really important. I was talking with some of the students earlier. At times, the notion of affordable power gets lost in the discussion of all the other things we'd like to accomplish with power. And in certain of my areas that I serve, about 40% of the customers have a family income below $50,000 a year. Some of my fixed income customers put the power bill in the same pile as the food bill. And so their expectation around how we transform is really important. And we have to constantly challenge ourselves to move in the direction of what customers expect, to meet their expectations, but also keep a keen eye on affordability, because it's so important for the people that we serve. We are also modernizing and innovating from the way we deliver power to the way we generate power. And there's so much opportunity to change and transform and move in a direction that I believe will provide great value to our customers as we move forward. On the delivery system, it's all about better reliability. It's about resiliency. It's about security, flexibility. You can think of us as operating a huge highway with the traffic being electrons. We send them to you. We've sent them that way for decades. And now that highway needs to have much more flexibility. It needs to be more secure. It needs to allow you to put electrons on my highway and move in different directions. And so when you think about just the picture of infrastructure and highway, I hope that gives you a picture of the type of change and transformation that we are facing and investing in every day to make that delivery system the best it can be. And then for generation, we have so many opportunities, not only to introduce great renewables, solar and wind, but also natural gas is an important part of the equation. Our carbon emissions at Duke are down almost 30% since 2005. And that has been as a result of retiring coal, introducing gas and solar power. And if you look and think about where this power comes from, in the Carolinas, 40% of it is already carbon-free. It's from something called nuclear. And I think about the innovators in my industry and at my company over many decades, and the leaders, the Sherwood Smiths and Bill Lees, and names that you don't recognize, but were extraordinary leaders in the industry and for our company. They built nuclear power plants that are probably some of the most valuable things we operate today. And so we have a terrific track record here in the Carolinas of carbon-free energy and have an opportunity to build on that as we go forward. So I look at energy, and as I think about these great MBA students, this is an industry where you can really make a difference, where if you care a lot about the environment and sustainability and how we can make a difference for the future, I believe the utility industry is really a place where great change is going to occur. And so as I think about all that transformation and I transition to leadership attributes, what leadership attributes am I looking for or am I thinking about for a company that is undergoing such transformation? And I would point to three things, and there are probably a dozen, and I'm sure many of the leaders here could identify others. But I'm going to point to passion, courage, and perspective as three things I'd like to share with you. And so passion, I'm sure for students, someone has said to you along the way, you need to be passionate about what you do. And you might say, okay, I kind of get that, but I'm more passionate about Tar Heel basketball, or I'm more passionate about my friends or what I do on Saturday night, and I completely get that. I'm passionate about reading Jack Reacher novels at times when they come out. You know, that's really fun. But what does it look like in the business world? What does it look like to be passionate about the industry that you operate in or the company you work for? Well, for me, it shows up in the form of people who are really curious about what we do, who want to go the extra mile to understand how things really work, who are comfortable on a steep learning curve, and are willing to tackle complex things because they want to know more about what's going on. Passion is something that is important in our industry because you think about the hard things that we do, complex systems. We have a hurricane coming into the Carolinas. I'm going to ask linemen and a lot of engineers to work through the weekend restoring power to customers in extraordinary circumstances. I think you have to care a lot about the mission and purpose of the company in order to do that really well. And so that passion is something that if you can find it with opportunity on where you want to work in an industry that you want to work in, I think there can be magical things about your ability to lead and your ability to contribute to change and transformation. I mentioned Bill Lee a moment ago, a name that you may not recognize, but in our industry, he not only drug Duke Energy into the nuclear era, he drug the industry in the U.S. into the nuclear era. He was passionate about nuclear energy and made a real imprint on our industry in a way that'll last for decades. And so when I look at my young leaders at Duke Energy, how does that curiosity show up? I had an opportunity to spend time early in my tenure as CEO with young engineers at McGuire Nuclear Station, just north of Charlotte. These are electrical and mechanical and nuclear engineers, 1 year out of college, 3 years out of college, 10 years out of college. They work in a very rigorous environment where safety is important and the reliability and operational excellence of that plant every day. But as I held the conversation with them and we talked about the company and the industry, we could have been anywhere because it was a broad-ranging conversation. They cared a lot about what was going on in renewable energy. They cared a lot about what's going on with natural gas. They cared about how are we recruiting and retaining talent. They cared about how do I look when I show up at your desk? How does the performance of my plant look when I show up on your desk? And it was a broad-ranging conversation because they were curious about how their role and their plant fit into the picture of the company. And so I love to see passion in the employees that I have an opportunity to work with at Duke Energy because I know we're going to do our very best if we care passionately about the success of the company. Courage is something that speaks to me because there have been many times in my career where courage and perseverance have been really important. And I don't know that business leaders are often looked at as courageous people. You know, we associate heroes with other things, and they certainly are, whether it's the military or police or firemen or others. But I would suggest that as you go through a period of change and transformation, and as you face a 20, 30, and 35-year career, there are going to be points when you're digging pretty deeply to do courageous things. And I think about the transformation that I talked about a moment ago, where we are being impacted throughout the value chain of energy, whether it's customers or the grid or generation. We're having to wrestle with complex issues. There are no perfect solutions to big, complex problems. You have to think about them deeply. You're going to have to make some judgments as you explore the boundaries of all this change and transformation. How far do I go? How fast do I go? How much money do I spend? What is the pace? And you're going to have to make some tough choices. And as it turns out, not everyone's going to be happy with the choices that you make. Whether it's internal or external, there are lots of critics. And there are opportunities to make mistakes, and you're going to make them. Or your organization is going to make them. And so at those times, having an opportunity to call on some courage and perseverance and say, I am going to do the right thing and I'm committed to moving forward is what a leader needs to do. And courage has been something, as I think about not only the transformation we're undergoing and the choices we have to make, but I've also experienced career detours, which I suspect many of you have or will. Doug introduced me as an Arthur Andersen alum. I was a partner during the middle of Enron. And 6 months after I became CEO, the Dan River accident occurred. And Duke released ash into the Dan River. And we needed to address that immediately, take responsibility, and improve our operations and use that as a catalyst for change, because that's not the company I do, and the employees at Duke are not employees who want to do anything but their very best and demonstrate great compassion for the environment and for excellence. And so those are times when I also have had to look inside and really focus on perseverance and doing the right thing. And in a period of change, transformation, and just the detours that a career will lay in front of you, I suspect there'll be an opportunity for you to demonstrate courage. And then the final thing I would touch on is perspective, which is something I'm constantly reminded of. When I have passionate people who are very courageous and want to get to work right away, there's a great sense of urgency, and I love that. But there's also a need to have perspective that you don't have all the answers, that it takes a team around you in order for you to be successful, that you always should engage in listening to the points of view of others around you, because it's going to make you better with your own decision-making process. And as much as a career requires you to sprint to a finish line, there really isn't a finish line. It's more like a marathon. And I think about this period of change and transformation that we're going through, constantly stepping back and getting perspective. Are we on the right track? Are we going at the right pace? Are we making the right decisions? It's something that we have to constantly challenge ourselves for. And I would share one experience here on the importance of perspective, because we've been undertaking transformation, as I said a moment ago, retiring coal plants, introducing solar and natural gas. We had a perfectly beautiful engineering solution for the city of Asheville. We were going to retire coal, we were going to build a gas plant, we were going to put solar on the ground, and because we had the opportunity, Asheville sits in something from an electric system that's like an island. It's in a tough geographic area. We were going to take the opportunity to build more transmission into the area so that if something happened to the power plant, we'd be able to continue to provide reliable service to Asheville. It was a beautiful engineered solution that we thought would be a perfect solution for 20 years. When we took that conversation into stakeholders and into communities and talked with our customers and community leaders about that solution, it turned out they had some different ideas. Their perspective on the perfect engineering solution was different than ours. And we had an opportunity, because we listened and learned from that, to come back and say there's another solution. We can make the gas plant smaller, therefore the transmission's less important, 2 plants instead of 1. And we can engage the community in a discussion about how we can spend more time and resources on energy efficiency and demand management so that we lessen the need for generation in that region in the future. And so that was a reminder to me that as urgent and passionate as we are to get the right answer and get to the solution, to have perspective and engage and listen to the stakeholders around us are really important for us to get to solutions that will transform our company and transform this industry. And so I hope that all of you share my optimism that there is a great future in the energy industry and here in North Carolina for us to make a difference and continue to lead. And I think the importance of what we do, and if we transform well, then the communities we serve can continue to do the great things that they have as their objective for transformation and change, and continuing to do all of the things that they would like to do and are so capable of. So it's been a pleasure to spend a few minutes talking about industry and talking about leadership lessons. I'm optimistic about the next generation of leaders really making a difference and bringing that passion and courage to the workplace in a way that will move Duke forward and move the energy industry forward and also move North Carolina forward. So thank you for your attention. I'd be delighted to answer questions. So Questions? Yes. One here?
And a long-time stockholder. What is your dividend policy?
We pay a very good dividend. And I speak loudly when I talk about the dividend. So our dividend policy is to pay a dividend that increases every year at the pace of the increase in our earnings. So with an expectation it grows around 4 to 6% a year. And we pay somewhere between 70 and 75% of our earnings out as a dividend. So we understand the importance of the dividend to our investors. If you were to do some fancy corporate finance math on how much of the Duke stock price results from the dividend, it's a big number. So we understand the importance and are committed to continue growing it. Yes?
Thank you for your time. Can you discuss the role of mentorship throughout your career, both as a mentor and a mentee, and how that's helped you gain perspective and deal with change?
Sure. No, I think there are a couple of things I'd share with you on mentor and mentee relationships. I've had lots of formal relationships where you connect with people in a formal program, and I think those are useful. But I actually think the situational mentoring, where you have a chance to work with someone and observe them and ask for feedback about how your work is going or how you interacted in a meeting or an experience, is just as valuable as those formal programs. And so I had an opportunity early in my career to see senior people, how they dealt with different issues, how they, I had one gentleman I had an opportunity to work with who was just so good at diffusing a really difficult situation. A little humor, just his manner was approachable. And I feel like there have been so many opportunities where I can watch others and learn from them. And I've had people who cared a lot about my career and helped me identify areas where I could continue to develop and grow. I think one of the most rewarding things for me is to watch someone that I've had an opportunity to provide input to grow and develop. And there have been many of those. And I put them kind of in the category of high points in my career when I see that development. Yes?
I read recently where people in different fields to supply the energy in their household through a battery.
So battery technology is an area that we're investing in. So of the batteries that exist on the electric system, Duke owns about 15% of them. And we have them applied in a bunch of different ways. So we have a big battery sitting next to a wind farm in West Texas. We have batteries in substations. We have batteries in microgrid areas, so a community where we are trying to manage their power within that community, and then in homes. And so the battery technology has continued to develop. There's more work to do for it to be economic in all circumstances. And so it's an area of potential investment, and I think it'll continue to advance. And so one of the reasons we are investing in studying is to figure out how to put that important technology to work. I think as we see more electric vehicles and batteries on a distributed area, we can learn even more about the power of battery storage in our residential applications.
Do you feel there is really a feature in a home being able to operate on just the battery?
So well, let's talk power, shall we? You know, I think there's a difference between using the battery to move power between the day. You know, maybe you charge your battery at night and use it during the day, or vice versa. But to go completely off the grid where you don't have the benefit of the power system, we're not quite there. And so one of the things I would share with you is if you have a solar installation and a battery, you still need me to start that air conditioner. And so I think there are great applications, but it's part of a portfolio of resources to do what you might want to do all day, 24 hours a day, all seasons. Yeah, the other thing I would share on battery storage, you know, a great application moving power from, you know, daytime to night or hours. But one of the things that I think about in the Carolinas, where the peak power demand in the Carolinas the last 2 years has been in the winter time. So 7 a.m. in the morning, it's dark outside. If I'm going to use a battery application then, I'm probably not just moving it from the day before, because in the month of January, I only have a solar resource that is powerful enough to deliver all of the solar megawatts for a couple of days. So I need to move it from a different season. And that is not something we've completely solved. So, you need to focus on the application of the battery. Yes?
Do you have a timetable and a goal for energy produced from carbon-free sources?
So we have reduced, as I said a moment ago, 30% carbon reduction. 40% today is from carbon-free. As I look ahead over the next 10 years, that 40% probably grows to 50%. I think we will continue to progress that on carbon-free, but also carbon reduction as we move from coal to natural gas. And so it's part of the journey that we're on, and we'll continue to make economic decisions to do that, keeping our eye on achieving that environmental goal, but also achieving reliability and achieving affordability for our customers. Yes?
In yesterday's Wall Street Journal was a column on article on how to pass the future fuel energy costs. Would you comment on a couple of things? One is clean coal and oxygen. And second is nuclear, is it static? According to the Army, it seems like now it's about a third of the source that nuclear. Is that going to increase, decrease, or only decrease as other things are decarbonized?
Yeah, so those are good questions. And I think the clean coal question is, how do you define clean? And I'm not making an excuse of that, but I think that's a broad definition. So today, I would say that the plants we operate have very clean air. So there's been a lot of environmental work on coal plants for SO2 and NOx and emissions that came out of coal plants decades ago. And those emissions aren't there anymore. Those reductions are 60, 70, 80, 90%. But if your definition of clean is carbon-free, then the coal plants that we operate today don't capture carbon. And if they did capture carbon, what would we do with it? There's an idea that you can use it for enhanced oil recovery. You can put it into the ground. There are some applications for the use of carbon if you capture, but not at scale. And so clean emissions, absolutely. Excellence around that, absolutely. Not carbon-free, though. And so as we think about coal in the future, as we continue to decarbonize, the amount of coal in our fleet will continue to decrease. Nuclear is an asset I referenced a moment ago, extraordinarily important one. 40% of the power that we consume in the Carolinas is from carbon-free nuclear. I believe nuclear needs to be a part of the solution if the U.S. really wants to be aggressive about reducing carbon. A nuclear plant runs 95% of the time. So you think about the 7 a.m. morning when you're doing your microwave and toaster, when you get up, that nuclear plant can provide you carbon-free power at that time. One of the challenges, though, twofold. One, we need to preserve the assets we own today. And at Duke, we have a lot of focus on doing that. We believe there's an opportunity to extend their licenses so they can continue to be a part of the fleet. Building new nuclear is something that's going to take great commitment, not only from our company, but from the communities we serve. It is a 5 to 7 year journey to build one, and they're expensive to build. And so we are in the process of advancing licenses, so we will have a license to build by later this decade. Should get the license this year, and then there's some refinement of the 17 and 18 that we'll need to complete. And then we really need to grapple with, are we going to undertake adding new nuclear to the Carolinas? I think that's something that the community at large, and it'll be a conversation about whether that makes sense to go forward. Right now in the U.S., there are 4 units under construction, 2 in Georgia and 2 in South Carolina. If I would take you around the world to China, there are 25 under construction. And so one of the things as we think about being a leader in carbon-free energy, if you advance the clock forward on nuclear power, the U.S. could find itself where it's not the leader anymore because it's a technology that's being embraced more heavily in certain countries. So I think it's a great conversation about where we go, but the answer is a complex one. Yes?
Thank you so much for coming. I really enjoyed
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because one of the hardest jobs that we have is interacting with customers when things aren't going well. How happy are you when your power is out? How happy are you when your trees have been trimmed? Yes, lots of people happy when their trees are trimmed. And so having an empathetic voice and the empowerment to talk with customers and try to get to solutions is what we work with our employees on. And for the most part, you know, an employee who can see success from their interaction and can satisfy a customer, if you get to that point, there's no better feeling. And so we spend a lot of time on the behaviors that we expect and really coaching and counseling around those difficult situations so that employees who do interact with customers hopefully do a better and better job every day. But I think your point about how you create a culture is one that there's no silver bullet, one answer to that. It's starting with leadership and then trying to get that culture to work all the way down deeply into the organization. And as I look at the employees that I have the honor to work with at Duke Energy, when I guess it was a February snowstorm, I had a chance to find my way up I-85, slipping and sliding away to the call center to interact with our young professionals who answer the telephone during a tough winter storm. And I was so proud to hear them trying to develop solutions and talk with customers and provide options on how they could move forward. And so there's an opportunity to do so, and we have to get better at it every day. Yes, back here.
The approval has just come for Piedmont Natural Gas.
Yes.
That's just one. You see two things. One, how are you going to store? You've been using them for a long time as far as gas and storing them and not reducing their force or losing their break even. And also, you plan to make gas maybe your one of the big pushes as far as power. This is quicker than usual.
Sure, sure. So natural gas is an important resource in the generation of power, an important resource for the U.S. And with the discovery of shale gas, we have an opportunity to provide a low-cost solution to customers that's lower carbon and can be used in a complementary way with renewables. And so if we were to look back at 2008, Duke had almost no gas on the system. We were nuclear and coal. And since 2008, we have inched up that gas to about 25%. Piedmont is integral to us because Piedmont operates the pipeline infrastructure within the state that not only powers our plants, but also provides great service to customers. And so as we look at a future where we're trying to reduce carbon and introduce renewables, natural gas becomes a really important resource to make all that work. And so Duke has been investing in natural gas infrastructure over the last several years. We have a $2 billion investment in something called Atlantic Coast Pipeline and an investment in the Sable Trail Pipeline coming into Florida. And then Piedmont is the third leg of that stool to give us a platform to invest in natural gas to provide infrastructure that we think is so important. So it will be an increasing part of Duke, but it's about 10% of the company today. And we hope to grow it, but it's going to be relatively small compared to the electric business, at least in the near term. Yes, right here.
So you're in an industry where your customers are wanting to pay less. They not only want to pay less, but also use less energy. What's your strategy for growth in that community?
Sure. So everyone wants to pay less for everything, do you think? Yes, less. We all want to pay less. And so I think the behavior that you're talking about where customers want ideas on efficiency and customers want low-cost energy, I think that's the world that we live in. And we have to continue to deliver solutions to them that meet those expectations. And so as we think about growth, we have a couple of avenues to do that. We are blessed here in the Southeast with an increasing number of customers. So about 100,000 new customers show up at Duke Energy every year for the provision of power. That gives us an opportunity to grow. We also have had an opportunity to add wholesale customers. So these are customers that buy power from us and sell to other people. That's been a growing area of our business as those customers no longer want to generate their own power. They'd like us to do that. So we grow in that way. And then we grow by investing in new businesses like Piedmont, like the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, like Sable Trail, where we have an opportunity to build infrastructure and do so in an efficient way, controlling the price impact to customer by continuing to drive efficiencies in our business and also continue to focus on low-cost fuel. So the growth story is a combination of a lot of things, but in large measure, it's us finding investments that make sense for our customers and delivering the value that they expect. Can we go here? We'll go here.
So it's election year, and we've got
Yes, it is.
candidates with very different energy policies. Can you give us some detail on how those policies each may affect your decisions as CEO?
You know, the policies that are being put forward right now, we're studying and learning more about them, but it's really premature to make any investment decisions or any strategic decisions around those policies. They need to get into Washington. They need to meet the House and Senate. They need to see, where the agencies, Environmental Protection Agency or the IRS or others that might be a part of those policies. And so our objective is to work with every administration as they wrestle with those things to talk about and advocate for what makes sense for our system and for customers. And I had a chance to talk with a number of students earlier. I think one of the things that's important to understand about our business is I'm not only thinking about 2020, which might be the first term of someone's presidential year, but I'm also thinking about 2025 and 2030 and 2035, because when I put capital to work, I build something, I want it to last for more than 5 years. So I have to have a longer planning horizon, be at the table when policy is discussed in the political arena, but also be driving to a strategy that we believe makes sense for our customers in our region. So more to come on the politics. We have, 30 days? Is anyone happy when it's over? Maybe? Maybe? Right here.
Virtually all of our lives are powered by, and I thought you were going to say electricity, but you said energy. And that caused me to ask if you've got lots of ways to create electricity, but are you delivering energy in some way other than electricity? So I think that would be interesting.
Effective this morning by natural gas. Yeah, with Piedmont. Yeah. Sure. So when I say energy, power would be another term for that, because we are primarily in the electric business. And we generate power from gas and coal and hydro and renewables and nuclear. But with Piedmont, we also are powering customers with natural gas. This is day 2. So, we're hoping for many more days.
But you deliver it.
Yes.
Product you deliver is electricity.
Is electricity. And so to talk about delivery for a moment, if you think about a world where I generate all the power and I deliver it to you. So that's the way the infrastructure was built, like a one-way highway. I start it, I deliver it to you. There are exit ramps for your home, your community. In the future, I believe there are going to be more people generating power than me. You think about distributed energy resources. You think about solar farms. You think about rooftop applications, battery, not only generating, but maybe storing it. Customer expectations. They want to know where the power's coming from. They want to know what outage is going to look like, when it's going to be back. They want more information on their usage. My highway gets it to you. It doesn't give you much more. It needs to give you more. It needs to give you more information so that you can manage your energy better. And if you're going to put power back on my system, my highway needs to go both directions. It only goes one way today, from me to you. And so that infrastructure build around delivery is something that we have to do smarter, new technologies, modernize, and introduce the flexibility that our customers count on in order for us to be able to do what we believe the future holds in terms of delivery of power. Yes?
I did a diversity and inclusion training today, and they talked a bit about high attrition of low tenure employees. So I just wanted to hear some of the policies and programs that you all have to build the retention and to enhance diversity and inclusion.
That is a really good question, because once a month I do something called business process review, where every function in the company comes in and talks about how things are going. And one of the things I look at is attrition of minorities, of women, and of people with less than 5 years of tenure at the company. And we are, we do the red light, green light thing, right? Green is we're on target, which means I'm not losing people any faster than I want to. Yellow is I'm losing them slightly faster, and red is I've got an issue we need to address. So we are doing good work on retention, but what we're learning is like any conversation around diversity and inclusion. Everyone has a different perspective about their career and expectations, and I think generationally, we also have different expectations about career. And so trying to create an environment that attracts different people and different points of view and different conversations and is inclusive for everyone is absolutely what we must do to be successful. Because I think all of us recognize that we cannot fill our company or our classroom or anything that we're responsible for with people who look and act just like us, because they don't exist. And I think with complex issues, to have diverse points of view to try to get best solutions is important. So we have things like employee resource groups, we have development programs as people transition into the company. We work on knowledge transfer for people who are in areas where they have more senior workers around them. And I would say it's a journey that we're continuing to work on, but a priority that hits my desk every month to see what progress we're making. Let me take one over here and then I'll come back.
You've spoken, ma'am, a great deal about renewable energy. I was wondering where in that field you saw the greatest opportunity for Duke Energy to expand and profit and provide the most reliable service.
We are investing in renewables in a couple of different ways. If I look back over almost 10 years, so we entered the renewable space in about 2007, 2008, we've invested over $4 billion. The majority of that is in wind, and it's in windy places. So it's in Wyoming and Colorado and West Texas, where we have tried to invest where the renewable resource is the most economic and where the resource has the greatest potential to deliver power. More recently, as the price of solar and photovoltaics and the underlying technology has decreased, we've invested more in solar. Here in the Carolinas, Rob Caldwell, who leads our renewable business, is here and has spent a lot of time on solar in North Carolina. We're also building solar in Florida. So our objective is to add renewable resources that are economic and where they make sense, given the renewable resource. So wind where it's windy, solar where it's sunny, and hopefully an increasing part of our portfolio as we go forward. Of the things we are investing in from a generation standpoint, it's renewables and natural gas. It's over here? Yes.
So you mentioned that highway going back and forth. How do you view the blockchain? Is that something that you're aware of? Is it something that you view as a threat, or is it something you're investing in?
So I'm sorry, your term.
Blockchain, like a Bitcoin type thing, but as you mentioned, local communities will be able to send power back to the grid.
Yes.
How do you view that as people view the blockchain as something, a distributed source of you can send power out and then have it come back in?
Yeah, so I think we're seeing that already in certain parts of our system, and we're trying to build the capability to absorb it and to make it work in a way that doesn't affect the reliability of other customers. And I think there are technologies that do that, and we're investing in them. We're actually working with a vendor around microgrids, where we would be able to produce power in a community type area or a small industrial facility that could island itself if there's an issue, receive power when it wants, maybe send power back the other direction. So those are technologies that we're investing in and will over time as our system requires it and as customers want it. So it's not going to be a wholesale everything works that way, but we'll be working on that over time to meet the needs of customers. Yes?
You mentioned the importance of the partnership with UNC, Chapel Hill, and other universities. Where you might comment on some of the things you think we're doing well, and also some things you think we should consider changing.
Oh, there you go. One of the things that we like to do with universities is have a good conversation about what they're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to accomplish, and invest in things that continue to produce high caliber talent that not only can work in our industry, but work in the communities that we serve. So we're often focused on STEM education. We're of course focused on energy and energy research. We have focused on leadership from time to time. In the community colleges, we're focused on workforce development. So if you think about trying to build a workforce for advanced manufacturing or even for our business, investing in community colleges has been a part of that. So I find that the best opportunities come from dialogue on what you're trying to accomplish as an institution and what we are, and trying to find common ground. I love the fact that there are opportunities for business leaders to engage with students, just as something that I appreciate about what Chapel Hill does. Because I think a student who's had some exposure to the business world before they come and have had an opportunity to interact with business leaders, it's just going to give them a little bit of an edge to understand more fully how it works. So we're really blessed with great institutions in North Carolina, and Duke is honored to have a part of working on projects with them. Yes?
Talk about the company's position on carbon tax and how carbon tax impacts our industry as a whole.
So carbon tax legislation, okay. So carbon, we've talked about lowering carbon. Right now, what might come to your mind is there's a Paris Accord, right? That was the worldwide thing, an agreement among countries to come together and set some very bold aspirations to reduce carbon. In the U.S., what is happening is something called the Clean Power Plan. It is a rule coming out of the Environmental Protection Agency. Unfortunately, it's in the courts right now. You know, over 25 states have opposed it, so it needs to work through the legal process. I actually think that's healthy for someone who's trying to invest in connection with complying with the rule. I'd rather have the legal challenges cleared up before we have to do that. Whether or not Congress undertakes carbon legislation, which could be in the form of a tax, or it could be in the form of cap and trade, which is a model that's been used for other emissions, I think that remains to be seen, and whether or not there's a policy that gets developed with support of the House and Senate and the White House to move that forward. I would say there's more conversation about a carbon tax over the last maybe year as another tool to get to carbon reductions. But I think the thing to keep in mind with a carbon tax, what it does is it taxes carbon. It doesn't set a target reduction. It's hoping the market will work and force out things that are uneconomic and encourage the building of other things. One of the benefits of cap and trade is it sets a target, and you work economically to achieve that target. So there's always a debate on what's the right form. That debate could take off again, I don't know. I think we'll have to see what the priorities are of the new administration when 2017 comes around. Yes? Sure. You know, when I talk about sources of energy, I often, I'll go through coal and gas and nuclear and other things, but energy efficiency is also an important part of it. And if you look at the amount of energy efficiency that we have sponsored, not just what people are doing in their own homes with upgrading air conditioning and other things, we have reduced our own load almost 0.5%. And we have a program called My Home Energy Management. So some of you who are Duke customers get your comparison of how you use your power compared to your neighbors. We have saved so much energy from that one program because a competitive group of Americans, they don't want to be using too much power. And so something like enough power to power 100,000 homes for a full year has been saved from that program. We handed out millions of CFL light bulbs. We basically put new lighting. We're looking at a program to accelerate LED. And then demand response, we actually have in Florida, we have the ability to control pool pumps in our Florida jurisdiction. So we just turn you down when we need to turn you down. And that becomes a source of generation for us effectively to control load. So it's important. And I think energy efficiency is occurring organically in addition to what we're doing, because everything you buy is more efficient than what you took out, whether it's refrigerator or air conditioner or power sources of all sorts. One more? Two questions. Okay.
Can you comment briefly about the coal range situation? How did it become such a problem?
Sure.
Secondly, in the event of an attack on our grid, how is Duke prepared to that?
Sure. So let me do coal first. So this is a story I could tell all evening, and I'm sure no one wants to hear it all evening, me included. But we had a pipe that broke, a pipe that had been installed before I was born underneath the Dan River ash basin. And it's not what we expected of ourselves. It's not what our customers expected. And we worked around the clock to close it. And the drinking water in Danville, Virginia, which was the municipal water system right down from our plant, was never affected. The river returned to normal. But as you know, if you've lived in the Carolinas, it spawned a much bigger conversation on whether ash could be stored safely anywhere in North Carolina. We have been complying with the rules and the regulations around ash for decades. This ash has been stored for 50 and 60 years, and it's not just a Duke issue. It is an issue throughout the industry. Anyone who has burned coal has been storing ash for many years. And so what we have been doing is to work aggressively to close these basins in accordance with not only the federal rules, which were published at the end of 2014, but the rules in North Carolina, in both that were published in 14 and 16. And I'm proud of how Duke has responded to this. We've put our very best resources and attention to it. We've put scientists involved. We've had academics looking at all of our engineering and sampling and approaches in a way that ensures that our work is safe for the environment and safe for the communities. So as we move forward, we will continue that commitment to do it the right way and to maintain safe operations. Safety at Duke is job one, always has been. And so we have taken this as an opportunity to really catalyze our continued focus on operational excellence, and that'll be our commitment as we go forward. Question 2. Oh, grid cyber physical. So security of the power grid is really important. It's important infrastructure. And so our approach around cyber and physical security is to not only work on defense, which is cameras for physical security, fences for physical security, and all kinds of defense in depth around cyber. Our operating systems are islanded so that people are not able to get into our system. But we also focus on recovery. In the event something happens, that we can recover as quickly as possible. And as I look at the amount of resources that we've put into cyber and physical security, it's increasing every year. We run a 24/7 operation focused on cyber and physical security to provide as much assurance as we can about the safety of our system. So it's a very high priority. Thank you. Okay, thanks so much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my happy task to provide the vote of thanks at the end of this session, and the first vote goes to you, the audience. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for your good questions, and thank you for sharing your interest with Duke and our illustrious speaker, Lynn Good. Lynn, on behalf of the faculty, students, and all of the administrators and members of the Chapel Hill community, I want to thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule, and I want to thank you for sharing how much an interesting company Duke is at this point in time with all of the most cutting-edge challenges in the energy space. So on behalf of the whole community, let's give Lynn a vote of thanks.
Thank you.